Hi, my name is Caroline Dallaire, and today I will be talking about total physical response. Total physical response is a language teaching approach built around the coordination of speech and action. It attempts to teach language through physical activity. Language and physical movements are the key words used for this approach. James Asher declared that before speaking the target language, infants or students are developing a map, and when the map is detailed enough, speaking appears. Infants develop comprehension before saying their first words, such as mommy and daddy. They understand many words before they can use their voice to say them. That being said, comprehension is the first step to learning a new language. TPR was developed by James Asher. He is a professor of psychology at San Jose State University. He began experimenting with TPR in the 1960s. He noted that children in learning their first language appear to do a lot of listening before they speak, and that their listening is accompanied by physical responses such as reaching, grabbing, and moving. He wanted this approach to enable students to acquire vocabulary by listening and carrying out spoken commands. According to him, we have been focusing on the wrong side of the brain. To give you an idea on what this approach does not lean on, the left brain learning is linked to the following terms: memorizing, studying, which means the left side does not want this information according to Asher; working, which also means you are on the left side of the brain; and translating. We could say that these are all unnatural. Let's look at the aim of the approach. So the main focus of this approach is on stress reduction. TPR was developed in order to reduce the stress people feel when studying foreign languages and thereby encourage students to persist in their study beyond a beginning level of proficiency. It eliminates the pressure for students to speak new words of the target language. According to Asher, the key to stress-free learning is to tap into the natural bio-program for language development to recapture the relaxed and pleasurable experiences that accompany first language learners. Here are the main points of the TPR design. So we will be looking at what we need in order to deliver a successful lesson. First, we have the objectives, then the syllabus, the learning activities, the roles of the teacher and the students, and finally the materials needed in order to teach the lesson. The objectives are very clear. So first, it's to teach oral proficiency at a beginning level, which refer to the assessment of functional speaking ability. Then to teach basic speaking skills using basic and simple commands. And then the third objective is to produce learners who are capable of free communication, which is directly related to a stress-free communication. A TPR lesson aims to produce learners who are capable of an uninhibited communication that is intelligible to a native speaker. Then we have the syllabus. So the lessons will be sentence-based. The teacher always uses simple sentences to guide the students. Then we have the grammatical and lexical criteria that are primary when selecting the teaching items. However, it's important to mention that TPR requires initial attention to meaning rather than the form of items. That way it will reduce stress. Thus, grammar is taught inductively. Vocabulary items are selected according to different meaningful situations that can be used with ease. There's a fixed number of items to be introduced at a time. For example, students can't learn 50 words in one lesson. It's important that the teacher facilitates assimilation by previously choosing the number of words that will be introduced in the lesson. There are not 100 ways to use TPR in the classroom. Here are the main activities used by teachers. First, we have imperative drills. that are the common classroom activity. They are typically used to elicit physical actions. Then we have the conversational dialogues that are usually introduced after about 120 hours of instruction. Role plays centered on everyday situations such as the restaurant, the supermarket, or for younger students, we could use a classroom. Then we have slide presentations, and later in my presentation, I will focus on two types of activities suggested by Asher. Here are the roles of the students and the teachers. So students have the primary role of being a listener and a performer. They respond to the commands physically, and they monitor and evaluate their own progress. Students are encouraged to speak when they feel ready. That is when a sufficient basis in the language has been internalized. The teacher plays an active and direct role, and in order to do that effectively, he needs to be well prepared and well organized. The teacher also creates a stress-free environment, and he models and presents new material. Asher points out that the teacher's role is not so much to teach as to provide opportunities for learning. The teacher has the responsibility of providing exposure to the target language as much as possible. Then we have the materials. For absolute beginners, lessons may not require the use of materials. The focus will pretty much be on the teacher's voice, the actions, and the gestures. Later, the teacher may use common classroom objects, flashcards, pictures, or props. Asher also developed kits for students and teachers to use. I will be talking about that a little bit later. Now let's take a look at the procedure. So here's how to proceed when introducing TPR activities. First, we have the warm-up. So the teacher gives a summary of the last session. He repeats what was learned in the previous lesson. Then new words are introduced. The teachers give the commands by modeling the actions. The students will then do the actions repeatedly. Thirdly, we have the role reversal. In this case, students manipulate the teacher or classmates' behavior. And finally, the teacher will write on board new vocabulary items or sentences. He will then speak the sentence and act it out. At this point, students will just listen. Here are the typical activities that we can find in TPR. So here's an example of a portion of a course that was taught according to TPR principles back in 1977 by Asher. So the new word was slowly. So to teach this word, the teacher acted what he was saying. Walk slowly to the window and jump. Slowly stand up. So the teacher would stand up. And slowly walk to me and hit me on the arm. So again, he would walk very slowly while putting emphasis on the word slowly. So that's the first typical activity that we could find. Then the teachers were asking Asher if it was possible to perform TPR activities at their seats. So he designed kits, such as the interior of a kitchen like the one you can see here. Each student has a kit in the class. The teacher also has a playboard. Then they listen to the teacher's commands. For example, put the cat on the washing machine. The teacher needs to have his playboard displayed so everyone can see it, so they can do the movement at the same time. So the teacher puts the cat on the washing machine as he is giving the command. Now, for evaluation. Evaluation is made through simple observation of the student's actions. Formal evaluation is achieved by commanding a series of actions. So, pretty simple. Now the advantages and disadvantages of using TPR. So for advantages, we have that it's fun to move around. It doesn't need long hours of preparation. It's effective for adults and young students, great for learners who prefer kinesthetic learning. Um, it's low stress. So low stress equals more motivation, more participation, easy to customize lessons to the student's goals, and it allows students to have this long-term retention that we want for them to learn. The disadvantages are that it's challenging for shy students. High levels, it's not really suitable for high levels. It can be exhausting and it can get boring if it's overused by the teacher. And it also has limitations according to what the teacher can do with the students, since everything cannot be explained with this approach. It must be combined with other approaches. And finally, it's hard for students to develop creativity. So here's a quote that summarizes Asher's thoughts on the fact that kids don't necessarily learn languages faster than adults. Don't we say that young children are just like sponges? So here's the quote. There is a common belief that children are better able than adults to learn a foreign language. This belief may be an illusion if children living in a foreign country learn the new language through play activity while their parents try to learn independently of physical behavior. So I thought this was interesting. Here are my questions for discussion. The first one is knowing that TPR suggests that the teacher must repeat commands repeatedly and review the commands together with the students until they are able to carry the instructions without difficulties. Would you use this approach on a daily basis? Do you think it's redundant? And do you think it follows the Quebec Education Program's competencies in ESL? And my second question is, do you agree with James J. Asher when he stresses that his approach helped reducing students' anxiety? Thank you very much for listening.